It's Thursday. It's 5. We're live. This is Frankly Speaking. I'm Joe Spino, along with the return of Council President Darren Sear. Welcome back.
Thank you, Joe.
And the illustrious head of GLIS, Paul.
Illustrious?
Crowley. You were here last week. You did a very good job while I was ill. By the way, I want to thank you, the folks out there. You told them about getting a shot, which I didn't. He did. I got sick. He did, but not bad. I'm still sick. Neither of you are not sick anymore either.
Nope.
Listen to those two. I told you last week. Folks, I want to talk about something which I think is critically important. Right after I tell you the truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it, and frankly as well. We had a tragedy, guys, last week in Florida. Not one of many. As a matter of fact, unbeknownst to most people, it's tripled since 2011. Mass murders in this country, tripled since 2011. So you can talk about the last administration, what it was doing. You know, was it asleep at the switch or what? Anyway, everybody's missing the boat as far as I'm concerned, because I'm saying to you folks that the number one issue, known in the mainstream media or government, if we can put this up facts, Pedro, wants to acknowledge the key issue, and that's fatherlessness. Now, the rate of mass shootings has tripled since 2011, but our daughters aren't doing the killing. It's our sons, Darren. They're the ones that are doing it.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So tripled from what to what?
What do you mean triple from what to what?
So we had one
a
in
baseline,
2011?
Whatever it was in 2011, from there forward, it has tripled. The rate of mass shootings has tripled.
The number of shootings? So how many were there in 11?
You want me to, do I know?
No, I know. Was it 1 and then it tripled to 3, or was it
Could be, Paul.
27?
Either way, it's 3 times more. No matter what you use as a baseline, it's going in the wrong direction.
I don't know.
Okay.
I need more information to be able to evaluate what that
Well,
means.
go look to the Department of Homeland Security. You know, they're the ones who provide these stats. The point is,
Okay.
it tripled.
Fair enough.
Now, let me go one step further. It says boys with significant father involvement are not doing the shootings. That's an important point. Secondly, the number of single parents household is a good predictor of violent crime in a community. The poverty rate is not. That's not the nexus. And here is a great quote by the comedian Black, I forget his first name, but he said, quote, "If you want to hurt a man, listen to this, Paul, the first thing you do is attack his masculinity." There's a lot of truth to that. For 50 years now, the media has been rendering men as being dodes, single families are being elevated, and men have really toxic masculinity. You hear about that all the time now. So men are now confused. They haven't had any support system. They've been ridiculed.
I don't know. Are you confused?
I'm always confused.
If you think about it, let's throw up these fatherless generation facts. Read them down, if you would, Mr. Crowley. Throw them up there. You got them right there.
I do, yeah.
Fatherless generation. Go ahead.
So the
What's it say?
fatherless generation, and there's a little emoji there with a little tear coming out of his eye. So 63% of youth suicides come from fatherless homes.
Okay.
90% of all homeless and runaway children
Come from fatherless homes. Go ahead.
85% of all children who show behavior disorders. 80% of rapists with anger problems, 71% of high school dropouts, 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers, 85% of all youth in prison, 92% of daughters from fatherless homes are more likely to get divorced themselves, and then 90% of adolescent repeat arsonists live with only their mother.
So what does this all mean, Paul? Do you think maybe that we should be rethinking our social policies? You're on the city council, and everybody wants you to come up with solutions. So they yik-a-yak,
Right.
and they don't even look at the core problem.
So can I just add that I agree with that. I think that it seems like every single time something goes wrong in society, the first thing that everybody does is say, what's the government going to do to fix it? And I'm not so sure that the government is supposed to fix everything. The government is certainly in a position to do some things to help and so forth.
But there's society.
But when you're talking about this matter,
This is society,
it's a family thing.
Of course. And government interfered with that equation.
Right.
Okay? The government subsidized single parenthood in this country, destroyed the black family, since the Civil Rights Movement in the 1965s. That's undeniable.
Destroyed some of the families that continued into that single parenthood.
Paul, single parenthood among the minority community, black community in particular, is off the charts. It's growing also in the white community. It's because, look, we don't even value life, Paul. There's 900 abortions per day on average, right? Nobody's screaming and yelling about that.
Yeah, there are.
Okay, so what I'm saying is we have a societal problem here. The guns are an instrument. Take away the guns, they'll find another instrument. Those who want to do evil are going to do evil.
Yeah.
But what we do know, that if you have fathers engaged and celebrated, father knows best, remember him?
Yep.
That these kids don't go and shoot. These boys don't go and shoot people. And I thought about my neighbor. Think about your neighbor growing up, Darren. Your father was intact. The kids in your neighbor from whatever background, their fathers were there. No problems.
Right.
You know what? You got in a fist fight down at Clark Street, and that was it.
That was the end of it.
Am I right?
Yep. Yep.
What about your neighborhood, Paul?
Pretty much the same
You didn't
thing.
grow up in the Diamond District, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but when you take a look at how the world has changed in just the last 20 years, cable TV, the internet, cell phones, all this stuff is at the disposal of all these young people, and they're taking away the respect of life.
You're right.
And it starts all the way back in the 60s, where you're right, where they took, and I'm not saying this that tell people to believe in God or not to believe in God, but since they took prayers out of schools,
Yeah.
a lot of things have changed dramatically. And of course, it's a topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
But they must.
Right.
That's the
And
thing.
everybody's too willing to blame everybody else for all the problems that's
Everything you said
going on around them.
computes except for one thing. Here is where what you just said and what others try to say falls apart.
Right.
Girls aren't shooting anybody, and they're under the same pressures of video games and all those cultural negatives that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Also
It's the
single
boys
families.
that are doing it.
Right.
Why?
Also single-parent families, too. They fall under the same trap, right?
Which is what?
No, I mean, you're saying that the girls are growing up in these single. My thinking is, if the girls are growing up in these single-family homes, why isn't it? You know, why are
aren't
the
they-
stats?
Yeah.
Well, I also think that girls mature faster than boys do. They're more responsible than boys are at an earlier age. I mean,
Yes, but they divorce at 92% rate.
well, it's not just their fault. It's,
Well, it is their fault. It's society's fault.
Right.
See, that's the whole point. The point is that if society, by the way, folks, the number here is 781-780-9460. Please join in on this because I think it's a very important subject that ought to be talked about.
Well, and what Darren was saying reminds me of what you said. You've said a number of times on this show and when we've talked off air, and that is that government is always they feel like they have to compete against the family unit and religion
For control.
for control. Right?
So if you destroy both, you have control. That is the Marxist playbook.
Right.
That's Alansky. You know?
Saul Alinsky, yeah.
Saul Alinsky, that's his playbook. All your socialists, all your communists, all your left-wingers destroy family and destroy religion. They mock it.
And then we can take over. We can have everybody dependent upon us.
What else, Paul? Get rid of
well,
the
they've created
get rid
a
of the Second
society
Amendment
of
while
dependent
you're at
people.
Yeah, Second Amendment. That's on
Get
its way
rid of
out.
it.
That's on its way out the door.
Yeah,
by the
it's
way.
all interrelated.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you want to give your opinion on fatherlessness, please. You know, we'll give you the stats. They're undeniable, and it's sad. But that's where I think we're going to approach. Can Judy do it? Can we get her up there? She can? Oh, she can. Judy is looking to be a dispatcher. Now, apparently, JoJo has something to say. Get Joe up there, frankly, Joe. Apparently, the former mayor, Judy Kennedy, is embarking on a new career path. Good for her. She has a lot to offer. In her life before being elected mayor, she carted seniors around Greater Lynn for doctor appointments, shopping, or whatever. She loved what she did. My co-host, Paul Crowley, her boss, likewise loved what she did. No question Judy would make a fine fire dispatcher. But to my mind, she has more to offer the city. She has the experience, temperament, and talent to manage, reform, and modernize the Lynn Public Schools as its next superintendent. I hope she'll consider your thoughts. What do you think of that, Karen? Judy, as superintendent of schools.
I got to give it some thought.
Well,
I agree with you that I think she's a great person. She has a lot to offer. She knows a lot about our school system. But what it comes down to is the mayor. It's going to be the mayor and the school committee's responsibility to pick that person. And we're going to be looking for a new superintendent. So if I was her, I'd put an application in and go for an interview.
you worked with her for the Thurgood Marshall Middle School, and she was very due diligence on that one, right? The two of you work cooperatively.
Yep, correct.
And that has been,
Yep.
I'd have to say that.
I'll say this, that Judy and myself, while she was the mayor, we totally came to an understanding that we were both in this for the betterment of the city, and we put whatever differences we may have had aside, and I've come to respect her, and I call her a friend now. Whereas a few years ago, I didn't.
That's civility. We need more of that. Paul, you were her boss. You can attest.
Well, I don't know about, I mean...
The point of the
look,
matter was, she worked for Gliss.
A funny story is when she first won, it was 8 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to get a hold of her, and so people were calling her and reaching out to her, and I was doing the same thing, and I couldn't get to her, so I had to think of something, so I finally said, I called up the dispatchers and I said, clear her schedule and tell her I need to see her. So I actually did. I actually exercised my authority as her boss and made her come into base so I could congratulate her and wish her well and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty funny.
But you enjoyed having her. She loved that job, didn't she?
She really did. It was, she talks about it. She drove a sedan on the weekends for two 10-hour shifts, I think. And just getting out and meeting with the people, that's the beauty of that job. If you find that part of life invigorating, you can really be successful at
And
that
if she
job.
got that job as a dispatcher, she's looking at about $100,000 less than she was earning as mayor.
Yeah, and,
So it's not money.
So,
But it's a job.
It's a job.
but
It's
there's two things I'd like to say.
point. Yeah.
Two things I'd like to say. First of all, is the idea of her being superintendent. First of all, I think that the superintendent's job is at least as hard, if not harder, than the mayor's job.
Correct.
That's right.
That's one thing.
Exactly.
It pays more money too, by the way. And secondly, she made it pretty clear in the paper that she's looking forward to a job that she can
Go home at the
punch
end of
out
the day.
and then call it a day and then not worry about it until she comes
True.
back the next day.
Right.
But the city could use her expertise. She's an
Right.
attorney. She's very bright. She certainly knows budgets, right? Which is exactly what you need over there at the school department. She would be an asset to both the council president and the mayor in being able to solve, because that's where the dollars are. That is the only place where you can balance the budget,
Right.
as it turns out.
As it turns out, you can balance the budget by just getting a line of credit with the state.
We're going to be getting into that, Paul, right now.
All right.
You're way ahead of the game.
Was that a little zinger?
That's a little zinger.
Yeah. Folks, to bond or not to bond? Is it necessary, by the way, to bond? Is it?
Yes.
Why are we bonding?
Most definitely.
Here it is right there. Why is it necessary?
Well, right off the bat, if we don't bond, what'll wind up happening is you'll have a $230 trash fee, right off the bat.
But we're getting that anyway, I thought.
You're not getting a $230 trash fee.
Oh, so it's going to be less?
It's going to be $90 per household, or
Regardless
per
of-
unit in the city, regardless of, whether or not it's...
Wait a minute. You're saying it's either 90 or 230? Is that what you're telling me?
Right.
Who's going to make a 230? That's going to be assessed by an independent body?
No, the 230 would be assessed by the state if we go into receivership.
How do we know that?
Which is what we would go into, because they would go for the highest amount of the only revenue that you have other than taxes coming into the city.
So we could actually go into receivership? That would be a
We
good
could.
thing.
No, not really.
Yeah, well, it would be good to get a
Your
chance to
taxes would
reset.
go up, your,
Contracts would get torn up and get start over?
yeah, that's true, but don't think that it's gonna
No, I know.
save you a lot of money on that.
Well, wait a minute. Let me say, there was an insurance step that was being negotiated, if I'm not mistaken, between the mayor and the state,
Deal,
in which there was going to be an overseer. Is that correct?
There wasn't a negotiation on that, but there was
A proposal?
There are certain things that the state was looking for. We're not in the same situation as the other cities that have gone into receivership. State actually gave them money, so the state was looking to have some say as to how they were spending whatever money they were given. We're actually borrowing the money. We're going out for a bond, and we're looking for a $16 million line of credit.
Can you hold that? We got to take a break. We'll be back with $16 million worth of bonding. Stay tuned.
Sometimes a smile can say more than words could ever express. But what if you couldn't smile? Unfortunately, that's the sad reality for so many children today. But it doesn't have to be this way. Since 1999, Smile Train has been helping children say more than words ever could with their beautiful new smile. To learn more, call or go online now.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
As we come back, we have a question right up there for Mary H. Why do we keep naming names, bridges, and schools after politicians? Why?
That's so that they're
They're remembered.
That's
actually
immortality?
Yeah.
Well, so people are supposed to die before they get memorialized, I think.
Right.
But I think, in some respects, there's always an angle behind it. You know, it's to maintain that surname in perpetuity. You know.
But now they're rescinding them. They want to take down statues of Andrew Jackson.
Right.
They want to take down statues of Jefferson. So now it becomes politically, isn't it?
Right.
Strange.
It is absolutely strange, and I think that we should stop doing that. We should.
Yeah, but if you take a look at the history of Lynn, a lot of the names of streets and schools are named after some of the older families of the city. Breed, Bessem Street, Mudge, Fectalary. I mean, right, Fectalary is a perfect example of two people who weren't politicians. And one of them was a war veteran who got captured in the Korean War, I think it was.
Paul Kavanaugh, too.
Yep. And
Kay
Kay Larry was a teacher and a reporter at the paper, and she gave her heart and soul to the kids of the city. So there's two people right there that a school is named after. They weren't a politician, they weren't a millionaire, they weren't a movie star. A lot of people didn't even know who they were. They were behind the scenes.
Meanwhile,
Yep.
there's a lot of schools of politicians
There
who
are.
come from diverse backgrounds to which nothing is named.
Right.
I mean, I never heard of Chief Joseph Monument, you know what I mean? I heard of Pocahontas, however.
Right.
Our number here is 781
So
780-9460. And so, Paul, what were you going to say?
I was just, so in 1964, right after John Kennedy was assassinated, they came out with the $50. They did a Kennedy $50 that was, to memorialize his image and so forth. And, so that's typically how it works. But I was reading a book one time where it started to change during the Greco-Roman days, where they started putting the current ruler of the society on the coins. So I'm wondering when we're going to do that. Are we going to put like Donald Trump on the $100 bill, or Barack Obama on
We're not going to have that type of money anymore anyhow. Everything's going to be electronic, isn't it?
Right.
Like
Bitcoin.
chits.
Yeah.
It's going to be chits, right?
Yeah.
I find dimes and pennies and nickels all over the place. Now it's quarters. Nobody has any respect for quarters anymore.
Throw them right out the window.
Ping. They throw them out the windows, Our number here is 781-780-9460. Judy Kennedy for superintendent. I ask you. And let's get back to that 16 million. You want to know whether receivership is a possible alternative. Is that right?
It's clearly an alternative. I think that when you do that, you know, it's kind of it's a significant event for sure.
It's disastrous.
But didn't Chelsea go under receivership?
Darren, with all due respect, have you ever experienced it before?
What?
I haven't experienced
Okay,
it, though, but
so being able to call it disastrous is probably a little bit hyperbolic, you know.
But I'm asking you this: did Chelsea go into receivership? I believe it did.
And they came out
20 years ago.
They came out swimmingly.
Well,
We had the right person running it.
They came out. My point being is, I know the schools were taken over by Boston University.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, by Peter Graham, Boston
Yeah.
University. And Chelsea actually made a rebound. They had a renaissance as a consequence.
Right.
So it's not necessarily
It's leadership too.
a bad thing. It could be in this instance.
Right.
Now, preferably, don't do it. Now, you're going to have to meet on the 27th,
Tuesday night.
Tuesday
Yep.
night.
Yep.
That at City Hall?
City Hall, 8 o'clock.
Public hearing?
Public
Right.
hearing.
What happens if the people are opposed to it?
Doing it anyway.
Well, I mean, we're elected to do what we feel is the right thing
I understand that.
for the city, and I believe more than the majority of councilors feel as though this is the way to go. There are some things in the home rule petition that I don't like. I would like to see maybe some things added, but I'm comfortable enough to go along with it. I've had enough meetings between the mayor, myself, and through DOR to see what the seriousness of the situation is. And I believe that the mayor does have a pretty good plan to put us back on track. He's got a 4-year plan. It's not just about 2018, it's about 2019 and 2020. He's being smart in what he's doing. He's creating a credit line.
But it's on assumptions, Dan.
It
It's
is.
based on
It is,
assumptions.
right.
What is the purpose of a public hearing if the public is going to be heard?
We're
That's
gonna
the
listen.
law.
What?
That's
the law.
We're going to listen. They're more than welcome to come and voice their opinion.
But-
I encourage
But what if they
them to
oppose
come.
it? Caller, let's get that caller up there. Why are we asking for a $16 billion bond when everything over $4 million is supposed to go to the voters? That question you asked Paul last week.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing 16 million is because in the home rule petition, first of all, we're the only city in the state of Massachusetts that has to go out for a bond. When DOR heard that, they were shocked. They couldn't believe that we have to go out for anything over $4 million. When that was put in there back in the 70s into the charter, and it was a different time. $4 million back then
It was real money.
was
Yeah.
real money.
Right.
Today, $4 million, probably you couldn't even buy $10 million worth of $4 million
So is
today.
$16 million chump change?
No, it's not.
And
But we need that so that we can get out of the fiscal crisis we're in for 2018. Also, we already know that the projections are that we're going to be...
Let me ask the critical question here. Why are we in the fiscal crisis? What is the driver?
There's a lot of issues.
I understand there's a lot, but what is the principal driver? You can't have
Tax revenues not
Wait a
coming
minute,
into what we
that's
thought
all
we were
good
going
and
to
well.
get.
But the reality is that if you have 300 to 350 kids per year over the last 5 or 6 years or greater,
Yep.
coming into the school system over and above
It's closer
at
to
13,600 per student,
Yep.
that's $5 million per year.
Yep.
So that's a minimum of $25 to $40 million, Paul, in the last decade.
Right?
And it's perpetual. It doesn't go backwards.
Yep.
So unless you take care of that problem,
Yeah, and by the way, the key to making budgets balanced year over year is keeping the growth, the revenue growth, and the rate of increase in costs kind of on a par. So if it's just 2 to 3%, let's use 2.5, Proposition 2.5, right? We can raise taxes 2.5%.
That's outdated.
Right,
too.
but what I'm saying is, if your expenses go up by 2.5% and you raise 2.5% additional revenue through taxes, bingo, you're all set.
Right.
Right.
Well, not really, but close
No,
to
I know. I'm oversimplifying it for sure.
Right.
But my point is that's what you would want to see happen. And the issue that Joe points out is that the growth in expenses isn't merely just an increase due to like raises and just the typical cost of living increases.
Right.
There's an expansion of the per unit education cost, right?
Right.
Off the charts.
But it's also insurances. The cost of insurance goes up
Nickels
every
and
year.
dimes. By the speaking of
Well,
that,
$7 million.
wait. Let
went
me
up.
ask you this. I'll guide your topic. Stream of consciousness here. We're going to get to this a little later on. You know that thing that you love down on Lynn Way that spins?
Yep.
That turbine. You're in love with that thing.
Wind turbine.
Do you realize that they want insurance on that is $23,000 a year? Why do you need to insure a windmill?
In case it falls over.
Gets
what?
pretty windy out there.
In case it falls over.
I mean, the whole idea is you put it right up there so it gets caught in the wind, right?
Paul, they want 23 grand a year for a spinner. What is the probability that that's going to cause any
Well, let
problems?
me tell you something.
$23,000 buys a lot of dinners in Washington. The insurance industry has a lot of people who are getting all kinds of laws changed all the time. That's why it's $23,000.
That, in a nutshell, is why our budget is out of whack.
So can I go back to
Yeah.
another matter that this whole $16 million bugs me? It bugs me about the $16 million. And I can't really speak to the charter, so I won't. But I always thought that you borrowed money, you bonded money for capital improvements. When we went to get the $10 million, and we had to get the voters' consent, and that was to do the repairs to Classical. We talked about it during the break.
Yep.
It was a capital outlay. It wasn't an operating expense. So when you use long-term debt to pay current expenses, you are essentially not balancing the budget. You are
pushing the can
you're
down
like
the road.
you're like borrowing money from
Right.
your.
That's what the whole petition's all about, was to allow the city to use those dollars to
Correct.
cover operating expenses. Am I right?
Right. In addition to getting around the issue of.
They didn't care about capital.
But any city that borrows money, it has to be bonded. And what we're doing is we've created a home rule petition that's going to go to the State House, to the Senate, and to the governor.
Right.
And we've met with all three of those already, and the mayor continues to meet with all three bodies, as well as the DOR. Now, there's not a lot of agreement on the DOR on some issues, but they realize the seriousness of the situation, and I think they're going to allow us to try to give us time to fix it.
So,
We'll get to that. We got a call here. Caller, how can we ever get back on track without making any cuts? Can we?
well, apparently we're not making any cuts.
Obviously.
Right.
And we're going to just keep
The
spending.
way to do it is to create more revenue to come in. Start the development down on the Linway. Start bringing in more tax dollars. And the tax and the type of development that we have to bring in with business and with putting residential down there is that it can have a huge impact on our city. We already have 16,000 students. We don't need to be bringing in more students unless we're
been
going to
saying
build
that now for 3
new
years.
schools.
So you know what's really interesting, and I hadn't thought about this until you just mentioned that, but so we're essentially going to say, okay, we have 349 units going in on the Beacon site, right, or something like that, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to work hard to make sure that they don't tax the system, right?
Well, we already did that by the number of bedrooms they have in each unit.
Right. But my
Right.
point is, so these are the guys that are going to be paying the taxes,
And-
but we won't let them go to school. And then we have all these
Oh,
people
no, if
coming
they
from
bring
outside
their
of the.
kids in, we'll allow them to go to school.
I understand, but you'd prefer that they wouldn't, right?
Right, exactly.
And at the same time, we're being like, there's an onslaught of refugees and unaccompanied minors and all.
That's a whole
And they don't
nother
pay
issue.
any,
That's-
but they
that's a
don't pay any
different-
taxes.
That's a different show altogether.
Yeah, well, the different story will have to wait until the break. And we're going to take it right here and now. Stay tuned, folks.
Good.
Calls me googly eyes.
You know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you're beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. Our whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
That's
And we're back. You know, I saw a stat that said something to the effect that in the city of Lynn, someone upwards to 90% of the tax revenue comes from single families, does not come from business. Very small percentage of our tax base comes from business. What happened? Remember we talked about we have business.
GE's gone, Norelco's gone.
Right.
You know,
Why?
and what we because the way the world economy is.
But
all
it's-
the jobs that went in the 80s.
Democrats shipped them
overseas-
all to Mexico.
Well, how come
Overseas,
all of a sudden a lot of these are coming back?
right.
All we did was elect a different mindset,
Right.
and the jobs are coming back, and they're expanding.
Well,
and
they've
the
been coming
unemployment's
back
going
for the
down.
last 10 or 15 years, and the reason being is because it started to get as costly overseas in China or in Mexico as it was here in America. So that's why they're
But
coming
why
back
in
here.
such a short order of time, just by simple deregulation, have the economy? I mean, Apple is reinvesting, is taking $350 billion back offline from out offshore, back in the United States. They're not the only ones. This happened because of an attitude,
Right.
a governmental
Right.
attitude.
Well,
And what
this-
Lynn has to do is try to bring a lot of that industry back in. You won't see the factories that you saw back before the 80s, but you could see Lynn could become a suburb of Boston. With
Unquestionably.
also with bringing office space into the downtown area, down along the Lynnway.
But
We
we're
have-
not connected yet.
Not
we keep
yet.
talking about that connectivity. That's
Right.
what to work on.
Yep.
That's downstream.
Yep.
Right now, we have a shortfall.
Right.
You're going to be able to cover it, hopefully, for the term of the current mayor. Correct?
Right.
4
Yeah.
years.
Correct.
So can I ask a question about, so you were talking about the 16 million being for operating funds. Is the plan that was approved by the Department of Revenue require the city to institute that trash fee? Is that,
Yeah.
you have to do it?
Well, we have to show the state that we're trying to go down every avenue we can to bring as much revenues into the city as we possibly
Because
can.
I thought the mayor was quoted in the paper as saying he didn't want to raise revenue over and above what was already anticipated by just charging it to the multifamilies.
Let's hold that. Caller,
Wow, Carl's
why
got a
did we accept $75,000 from the state to do a financial study and not implement any changes suggested? That's a legitimate question.
And that's what we're in the process of doing right now,
As we speak.
as we speak. The mayor also wants to do another overview of all the city budgets. He actually started almost on day one. He brought all the city departments into one room. He's doing it once a month. He's got all the departments working on their budgets, submitting their budgets earlier than we have in the past. He's got the council involved in the budget a lot more
But
heavily.
then why have a public hearing unless you have that information? I mean, the public
Public
hearing,
hearing on what?
you're having a public
anything.
hearing next week in order to bond out 16 million without information coming in that he's talking about, without
Because
the
we
conclusion of
have-
the study.
What we have is until April 1st to get our tax bills out. We can't send our tax bills out unless we have a balanced budget
But that's
for
by
2018
by charter, you must have a, right?
by state law.
We must have a balanced budget.
Right.
Okay, my question
And
is,
this will balance the budget when we get this bond
This
put
will
out.
technically be considered a balanced budget, but
Right.
it ain't balancing your budget.
that's not,
Well, the state is saying that it is.
Right. So it's a technically balanced budget, but it's kind of like what we talk about at the federal level. They balance their budget by just issuing more debt.
Right.
That's not
So
balancing the
does
budget.
every state in
So in effect-
in America.
so in effect, this public hearing that you say is law, must be done by law,
Yeah.
that's happening next week,
Yep.
is really superfluous.
No, it's not superfluous. It's an opportunity for the voters,
Public to come and
the
voice
voters
their
to
opinions.
vent.
Right.
And
But that's
they
all
vent.
they're getting to do is vent. They're not
So-
getting to
but
influence the
venting
outcome.
is superfluous.
Yeah. It's not going to change the outcome.
Precisely. Okay. Now, question. Why did I read that we're going to add 9 cops as a consequence of a grant that Judy Kennedy actually got
Right.
from the federal government?
Yep.
My difficulty with that, Council President, is that once you hire those 9 cops, that $1 million goes by the boards. That's about 1 year's worth.
Yep, and we have to
Who's
make
going to
up-
pick up their salaries thereafter?
We are. And the other way.
Why is that a good idea? Is that a good idea to do that?
Yeah, it is, and I'll tell you why. Because through attrition, we'll probably have 15 police officers that are going to be retiring in the next year. So at least this, we'll be able to fill that void, and hopefully we're going to bring in enough revenue so that we can be hiring more police in the future.
That's a hope.
So,
Second part.
let me just ask. So Darren, is the intention then to adjust the new hires based on what you can afford and the actual turnover, the retirement? So in other words, you're not gonna go and hire 9 more.
Right. Lynn should have a complement of probably about 200 police officers, and we're down in the 170s. And if we didn't get that grant and these police officers retired, we'd be down around the low 160s, high 150s, and it's almost impossible for us to we could do it, but it would be at a real exhausting expense towards the
Look, I'm a big fan of
manpower
public.
and police.
I'm a big fan of public safety, so I don't have a problem. I like to have that. In fact, I would like to have 20 new cops.
I would like to have 100.
Okay? But here's where I have a problem. I have a problem where the mayor turns around and he talks about the bond, and he talks about all of the things he's going to do to try to make sure that this never happens again. I've heard that a million times. And in the same breath, he says, by the way, I'm going to be an advocate. I'm going to work with community organizers to build 2 new schools. Why would you even talk about that when you haven't got the money to build a kindergarten, for God? You can't even get a trailer.
Right.
Can't manage the operating budget.
What was that?
You can't manage the operating budget. We have to
So why
borrow
would you
money.
turn around,
Well,
Paul, and go out?
because and I am trying not to throw anybody under the bus.
No, me neither.
But when the mayor came in, he inherited the budget that the
He
mayor
certainly
has.
did.
And so that,
But why would he turn around and talk about building 2 new schools? And why not just avoid
because
the
of
subject?
the need of it, and he knows, and the council knows, and I think everybody else knows, the only way to do that is to raise everybody's taxes by $200 and I believe $10 a year for the next 20 years. And that's the only way.
$10 a year per
two-
household?
200 on average,
Yeah.
roughly around $200 a year.
On top of the fee, trash fee
Yep,
going up,
yep.
on top of an increase that's going to happen on
Correct.
April 1st.
Yep.
Okay? So we're not talking nickels and dimes here.
No, we're not. But you got to see what those 2 new schools will bring into Lynn.
What
It'll
about
bring-
if we held
bring
back
more
the
students.
influx? We wouldn't
It
need
will
them, would
bring
we?
more students. Pardon?
That's
we can't
predicated
afford
on
more
taking
students.
on 300 kids per year, as opposed to saying we're going to stop the influx.
But wait a minute. You're right about the amount of kids that are coming in every year. They're coming in, a lot of these kids are coming in from other countries, and the reason they're coming into Lynn are because all the services that are here in Lynn that they can
Very good,
provide for those kids. So if you were to build 2 brand new schools, it'll raise your property values, it'll bring in families with more disposable incomes, and it'll start to push out all those.
That's the
Organi-
Kennedy School of Government coming up with that crazy idea. I mean, who the heck wants to spend more to build schools to drive their property values up so they can pay more taxes?
Joe, you know the democratic thinking here. It's
This
an
isn't
investment.
democratic
That's not thinking.
This is business thinking.
No,
You
it's
have
not.
to invest
Oh, wait a minute.
to make money.
Yeah, I like the word invest. Now, tell me how it's to my benefit
Yep.
to invest in 2 new schools so that you can say my property values go up, which translated means my taxes are going up.
Correct, 100%.
I'm not happy about that.
Yep.
Okay? Now, if in fact we had the same ratio of students as the surrounding communities, I got no bitch. But we have double the rate. And because of the nonprofits that you talk about,
We
it's
have
getting
more than
worse.
double, yep. We have
So
more
unless
than
we
double.
take care of those things, the rest is noise. I'm getting sick again, folks. I never hear 781 780
What I'd love though,
9460.
Joe, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
is that I love how everybody's got the reasons why we're in the situation we're in. Nobody's got a fix for it.
Yes, they do.
What?
Stop the influx. Tell them if they don't come with the federal and state dollars, send them to Chelsea.
So how do we do that? That's what I'd like to know. What do we do? Do we storm
why wasn't
down
there a-
on?
why wasn't there a
we tell
balance?
Seth Moulton to quit screaming and yelling about.
Why did we do something about on the cost side of
choked to
things?
death
There was
here.
nothing on the cost side of things.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Nothing on the cost side. All you did was raise revenue. You didn't do anything to cut costs, as far as I can tell.
And because we can't. Where do we cut? Do we
Well,
lay people
well,
off?
you know, all due
Do we
respect,
close buildings
all
down?
due respect to the owner of the Capitol Diner, but we didn't need to send him up to the water and sewer. You got a lot of that stuff that goes on. That's where you need to be cutting. What about the assistant down
We had a
at the
job that needed to
DPW?
be filled.
No, we
and
didn't need to fill it. We just had it. We had the job. It didn't need to be filled.
Well, that's an opinion.
No, it's an opinion, right. But my point is, when you come across openings like this, you talk about attrition, the fire department, the police department, you said during attrition, you're going to basically not fill positions
Right.
because you're going to, and you'll backfill them with this
Oh, let me ask you
grant
this.
money. No, wait, let me
Yeah.
finish. So you can do that with a high-end job at the water and sewer. If the water and sewer didn't need that position, if they could live without that position, why not save $100 and whatever thousand?
Well, why not save 100 some odd million by not separating the water and sewer in West Lynn?
106.
You keep saying 106, I say 150, I'll split the difference.
Okay.
But why are we doing that? When it's really unnecessary. You're fighting Mother Nature.
Because the government is telling us
I
that
keep
we
hearing
have to
this.
separate the
You know,
water and sewer.
The question I was going to ask you, Paul, and you also, and you folks, I'd rather have 20 new cops than jobs in other places. Do you understand that?
Yep.
All right. We're allocating our resources. The big issue, you can talk about a job at the Limon Sewer Commission, 150 grand. That's pennies. When you
No,
look at
but it's an attitude. I'm not.
I agree with
I
you.
was just making that as an
I
example.
agree with you, Paul. But here's the problem.
Wait a minute, do you guys eat at the Capitol
All the time.
on
yeah.
the weekends?
And I love it.
Same Capitol that the guy you're throwing under the bus right
I'm
now?
not throwing
He's
him under the
not
bus.
me.
I didn't
Okay.
throw
Oh,
him under the
okay.
bus.
I
Not
just
me.
want to know.
Now,
I'm just.
let me say this. I'm turning around, I'm going to say this. We have too much money invested in personnel. That's where all the dollars are. You can't do anything about the budget unless you take a look at personnel, and the only place where you can see personnel is in the school department.
Right.
And I'm a retired teacher.
So I got an idea on cost that I think that you probably have already been thinking about and really needs to be looked at. And I mean, it should be jumped on right away. Is you have the ability, without union approval, to increase the percentage of employee contribution to the health insurance.
Right.
Right? Currently, the city pays, the employees pay 17%.
Correct.
You could increase that from like 17 to say 25
Correct.
without too much trouble, right?
Yep.
And that 8%,
And we might even be able to do better than that because.
but are you going to do it?
Yeah, we're in negotiations to do it.
But I heard it
All
was
the
going to
city-
take 2 years before you decide.
No, that's.
Okay, so it's going to be something that's going to happen. You're not going to.
All the city contracts for all the unions, and I think it's the first time it's ever happened, are up in June.
Right.
So the negotiations will start then.
Well, that's-
They've actually already started sitting down. The unions are coming to the table. The unions are aware of the situation, and they seem to be like they want to really negotiate. They also understand that the cost, one of the major costs to the city, is insurance, and they realize what the difference is between what they're paying and what other communities and what other people that are working in the real world.
So
are
as
paying.
somebody who has had to negotiate these things every year for the past 9 years in my role, I just throw out one idea for you.
Yep.
If you can restructure the design of the plan so that you shift some of the premium towards the deductibility,
Yep.
and you could probably bring down the overall cost of the premium so that the impact on the employees would be negligible and still get the benefits that you're looking for.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
Let's get right to our caller. Caller, let's get it up there. And there it is. Was it really necessary to grill an elderly woman at the last council meeting? If that was my mother, I would be angry.
I would be too, Ralph. And to be honest with you, we had 3 pages of police reports, and at the very top of one of those pages was elderly abuse. She's been abused by her son. She's unfortunately been an enabler, encouraging the goings-on at that property. No city council, no city official wants to evict or tear down any woman's house. We're here to help. We sat down with them. We've been negotiating with them, trying to work with them. And within 20 days, they broke an agreement. There was another 2 overdoses at that residence within 20 days from us sitting down, speaking with them. My heart goes out to that woman. But her son, and from what I understand, other family members have been taking advantage of her, and that we've been put in the position that we're put in by that family. And
was this the issue on trying to seize some property?
Pardon?
Was this the issue on where
12
property was going to be seized?
Chansey Terrace.
Yeah.
What we did was we put a demolition order on it. And I can say that the city is still trying to work with this woman. We're still trying to help her. But, you know, the neighborhood down there, I mean, since I think it was 1996, there's 100 police calls, more or less. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but there's 3 pages of the police going there. And what really got me was when I saw elderly abuse. So,
wow.
I'm not going to be a part of that.
I'm
I don't
not
think the
familiar with
council
it,
wants to be.
and congratulations for taking a strong position, Paul. You're highly sensitive to issues with the elderly.
Yes, we're required to respond to cases of elderly abuse. Police, fire, banks are all mandated reporters. They report to us matters where they believe that there may be some elder abuse going on, and we investigate those.
That's good.
Yeah.
Caller? Yep, let's get it up there. Can we opt out of trash collection?
That's a great idea.
You can.
You can?
You can. Yeah, but you have to have the trash picked up. You can't have your barrels overflowing. It has to be picked up on a weekly basis. And, you know, I'm
Could
not
I put my
saying
barrel
to
out
do
in
it.
front of your house?
Nope. You have to, you know, you would have to have the people come to the
We'll
trash
get into that
company.
with a little more detail because we're going to move on a couple of things. Is that another caller up there? No. Flash up this.
Can I just go
yeah,
back
sure.
to the trash? I mean, Lynn is not the only community that's doing this, and there are a lot of communities, and I'll use Winchester as a perfect example, where their taxes are unbelievably high. They have to bring their trash to the dump, and they still have to pay a fee when they're dumping it
at the site.
So,
in Nahat, over
They
in
bring it
Nahat.
in.
But Nahat has to pay every year a trash fee across the board, whether you have 10 people living in the house or 1 person. It's the same flat fee.
So What's the difference between a trash collection fee and a real estate tax?
Nothing. It's a separation.
There
that's
is a
all.
difference, and I'll tell you what it is. In a trash collection fee, only residents and taxpayers and voters have to pay for it. If it's a business, they don't have to pay the
No, they
collection.
do.
They have to pay it. They're already paying it on their own.
If they're a business, a sub shop, or anything like that, and we're picking up their trash, they will have to pay for it.
Okay.
How are you going to
We
decide
got
how much?
two more things to get
We
to.
already have.
All right.
Let's flip up the KIPP Academy. There's a direct quote, if we have it, Pedro. Apparently, there's a little question about the expansion of KIPP Academy. There's a direct quote from President Sheila O'Neill from the Lynn Teachers Union. She said, "We are thrilled by the Department of Ed's decision to reject charter expansion in Lynn."
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Of course the union is going to be delighted with that. They don't like the idea of giving the students and their parents a choice. They want a monopoly
Hold on,
over
no, they
education.
do love giving a choice, but not at the
Yeah.
expense of all
English
the
or
other
classical.
kids that are going into the public schools. That's the problem. I'll give you 34 million reasons why she's happy, because that's how much money would be taken out of our school budget by the state and given to them. And every single year, and they say that it's through a lottery that those kids go into that school. It is. But if the kids that are in that school
They
that
don't
come
perform,
in,
they send them
if
back.
they're low performance, if they're not living up to their standards, they send them back to the public
so
school.
that's what needs to be
Without
fixed.
the you got it. That's exactly what's got to be fixed. If the state's going to say to us that you're going to allow, and by the way, 9.5% of the kids that go into charter schools is what the average is in all communities. They're trying to boost it up to 16%.
So can I ask
in
a
Lynn.
question? So how much per student is that? Does that translate to the money?
13,000, 14,000 bucks a
per
year.
kid.
For each kid
Would stay, if that money went to KIPP at the beginning of the year,
they
it would
get
stay there.
$13,000
It
per
would
student.
stay there.
They don't
And
get a
I'm not
different
saying
number.
it's a bad school or anything
No.
like that.
Paul,
And I
it's
agree with
zero-
you, every
it's a-
parent should have an option of where they want to send their kids.
But it's zero-
But if you're telling me that our system is broken, that you have to allow another school to come in, then come in here and give us the money to fix our schools.
Tell you what, we're going
It
to go to a
angers
caller.
me when they do that.
We'll
That's
talk
all.
about that.
Yeah.
We've talked about it many, many times.
Yep.
Caller, Judy Kenny is the perfect candidate for the dispatcher's job. Correction, Paulie asked the question about the elderly lady. Okay.
Which elderly lady?
That was the one that you were talking about with the house where you're
Right.
going to tear it down.
And Judy, that's a good point. Let me get to the second one. This is your favorite, Paul. And this has to do with the turbine. Can you get that up, Pedro? Some say yes, some say no. Are wind turbines the way to go? Are they?
I think so. Wind turbines, solar panels, that's the future.
So I was, I guess I knew this from talking about it with Wayne Losey a few years back, but the benefits that we were supposed to, or the water and sewer was supposed to get from putting that wind turbine there, when we were talking about putting it in, were a lot greater than they actually played out. Would you agree with that?
I think, yeah, I think the projections, everybody's,
Right. It's kind of like the new Marshall Middle School, right? We originally, it was only going to cost us $18 million, and then before you know it was a lot higher. You know, it gets complicated as you go through the process. And
Marshall Middle School came in on the budget, just for the record.
Right, but we paid more than 20% of the total cost.
Right, you do. And the reason being is because the state allows so much money to be given per square foot of the construction.
Right, but they don't cover like
they-
acquisition costs, land,
Right.
and things like that.
But-
But that wasn't clear when we were bonding it, when we were getting
No,
the
it
voters
wasn't.
to pass.
And most communities didn't know that. But if it costs, let's say they're allocating $200 per square foot, but the actual cost is $300, you have to make up the difference.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
Right.
Let's get some comments up there. Pedro, I'm going to do 3, 4, if we can have it up there. Tom Fenton
Tim.
says, a tactic that will only delay the inevitable receivership. It's time to start thinking outside the box. Maybe some long-term leasing of city properties. It has proven successful at Gannon Country Club, so that's a good point, by the way. Maybe a hotel overlooking some of our beautiful ponds, woodlands. Maybe golf packages.
I can tell you this, Tim, that's been a big part of the discussion. We do have property that we're talking about not selling but leasing, and so that it brings in a revenue every year. I agree about the hotels.
So it's a good concept.
Yeah, great concept.
All right, now
Excellent
Walter Carlson, thank you very much for saying
can
nice
I
job
read-
considering we weren't.
Can I
feeling
read
well.
Tim Fenton's
Yeah,
other
which one
comment?
do you want to do?
Yeah, so Tim Fenton says, I just finished watching the show here at Planet Fitness on Boston Street. This place is the only true melting pot in the city, and it's working. Joe, I would highly recommend you joining. I love
Giving a fact
you get all different views on what's happening in Lynn. Also hang with some recently retired city employees who are more than willing to share their point of view.
How much time do we have left here? 2 minutes? Okay. Malcolm Mitchell says a lot of things that make a great deal of sense. So I'm gonna jump down to this one about this is our Democratic administration's answer to all the problems. Bond, 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 and delay the inevitable. Lynn is going down the drain because there is no one that has the testicles to stand up to the feds and say enough is enough with the influx of illegal immigrants into our school system. You want us to educate, house, and feed these illegals? Then send a nice fat check along with them to support. I'm sick and tired of Lynn being a cesspool created by the federal government. Well, you know what, Malcolm? We have a new administration there that agrees with you. And we have a representative from this district that doesn't agree with the new administration. And I venture to say there are a lot of folks who are elected officials in the city of Lynn who also don't agree with the federal government's position, you know, and or they have Trump derangement syndrome.
Right.
But the answer is simply this: shut off immigration. We've said this for a long time, and it will resolve itself. All we need is a 5-10 year
time
period.
to absorb what we have.
That's it. And I really don't think you're opposed to that view yourself. Just to cut it back a little bit.
Right.
Give us time to breathe a little bit.
Yep. Let us work with what we have.
That's the most.
And the federal
that's the most-
government's got to work with us.
That's the most reasonable thing you've said today.
On reasonableness, they're going to have to wait till next week for more.
Okay.
Have a great week, folks.